Hey everyone, today I wanted to walk through how to make a washcloth using the paired single crochet stitch. I have a more in-depth video on this stitch already created, so feel free to check that out if you want a slower tutorial. But I really like the way that this stitch creates a really nice pattern for your washcloths. So this color that I'm showing here is Lily Brand, and their Sugar and Cream Scrub Off line, and this is the color greens. Today I'm going to be working with their Pretty Purples line. So this is what the yarn sleeve looks like, and this is, like I said, Pretty Purple, and that's this right here. So that's what I'm going to be making the washcloths for today in. So to begin, you're going to want to make a slip knot, and I have a tutorial on slip knots and chain stitches if you need a refresher. But to begin, you're going to chain 20 stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and chain those, and I'll come back when I've completed that. So I have completed my 20 stitches. So you're going to want to make this as wide as you want your washcloth to be. For me, I think 20 stitches is a good length. So after you've created your foundation chain the length that you want, you're going to want to add one more chain. So this is technically 21 chains. This chain is going to be used to build height on the next row. So to do your paired, single paired stitch, you're going to skip that chain you just did, go into the next one, yarn over, pull up a loop, go into the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, so you should have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. And so technically what you just did was a decrease, but to maintain your stitch count, you're going to work back into that 3rd stitch from the hook. So you got 1, 2, and 3. So you're going to work back into that one. So you're going to put your hook back in there, yarn over, pull up a loop, go to the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, so you got 3 loops, yarn over, pull through all 3. And again, go into that same stitch you just finished in, yarn over, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. And you're going to continue this same pattern all the way down the row until you get to the very end. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back here when I'm finished. Alright, so I just finished my first row of paired single crochet stitches, and as you can see, the piece is a little curvy right now, but that'll straighten out as we move forward. I've also got into the scrubby part of this yarn. So one thing I will caution, if this is your first time working with this yarn, make sure you're comfortable with looking at your stitches, because it is really hard to see those V's when you get into the scrubby part. The regular yarn, it's great, but the scrubby with these little pieces hanging off of it make it a little bit more difficult. So just make sure you're counting your stitches through this, because you're going to want to end up with the same number of stitches on each row. So to begin your next row, you're going to chain 1, and then you're going to flip your work. And this is going to be a little bit challenging to show you, but in most patterns, you're going to want to start in that next stitch here. But with the paired single, you're actually going to start in that chain stitch you just created. So this is going to be a little bit challenging to see in the scrubby part, but I'm going to show you again on other rows so you can see it. So you're going to want to chain that a little bit loose so that you can slip your hook into that stitch. So you should have, when you're in that stitch, you should have 1 loop behind and 2 loops up top. You're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, go into that next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then you're going to do the same thing like you did with those the pattern or the other stitches on that last row we just created. So you're going to go back into that same hole you just worked in, yarn over, pull up a loop, go into your next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And again, it is very challenging to see this in this scrubby yarn, so I would definitely recommend practicing this on yarn that is all one type all the way through until you get comfortable with the stitch, and then move on to yarn like this. Because I really love this yarn, but I struggled very much on my first round of washcloths that I made. So you're just going to keep going with that same thing all the way down through the end of the pattern, or end of the row, and I'll meet you back here at the end. All right, so we are at the end of that row. To do your next row, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to chain, flip your work into that chain, pull up a loop, go into your next stitch, pull up a loop, and pull through all three. So I'm going to keep going through this row and maybe a couple of more. I want to get to the smooth yarn again so that I can show you how to go into a next row a little bit clearer, because like I said, it is kind of hard to see with this scrubby yarn. So I will meet you back here when I'm starting a row with the smooth yarn. All right, so we are starting another row and we've moved into the smooth yarn. So now I can show you a little bit easier how to start your next row. So when you get to the end, you're going to do it one chain stitch. And like I said, I leave this a little bit loose because you're going to work into that. You're going to flip your work, take your hook and go into that chain stitch. So you got the back part of the chain on one side of your hook and the front part on the other side. You're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. So you've got two loops. Go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all three loops. Go back into that stitch you just made or just worked in, yarn over, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all three. And so as you do this, you'll start to see, and it's a little bit easier again to see this within the smooth yarn, but you're going to see this really neat like knot pattern of form. So this is the back part of the work, but that's the front part. You can see that like neat looking knot come through. I really like the way this looks, but you'll see it more as you go through like you do in that. So the more rows you have of that smooth yarn, the more defined that is going to look. So, and it does show up on both sides, but for this row, this is the front of the work. All right, so I am going to go ahead and finish all of the rows that I want to do, and then I will show you how to weave in your ends and finish off your piece. All right, I will meet you back when I'm done making all my rows. So I have finished crocheting all of my rows. I started with 20 chain stitches and then ended up doing 17 rows across to make it this width, which I am really happy with. I cut my yarn, leaving a decent tail. So to finish, you're going to do one chain stitch, but you're going to pull that all the way through. Now you have a knot on both loose ends of your piece. To finish this off, you're going to need a needle. You're going to want one with a really big eye up here so that the yarn will feed through it. So I'm going to show you how to weave in your ends on this side because it's going to be a little bit easier to see than down here with the scrubby part, but it's going to be the same thing. So you're going to want to take your hook and insert it into the stitches. Sorry, take your needle and insert it into the stitches. And you're going to just start hiding the ends. Now, everybody has a different method of doing this. I like to go a couple of different directions to hide it, so that way it's really secure and snug in there. So I'm gonna go a couple of different directions and hide this, and then I'll meet you back. All right, I've weaved both ends in, so there you have it, your completed washcloth. As always, let me know in the comments if you have any questions and what you would like to see me work on next. Have a great rest of your day, guys.